welcome to this week's edition of World Crisis Radio. This is Webster Tarpley reporting from Washington, D.C. Two big things going on right now on the foreign policy front and in the world of economics. Let's just look briefly at the foreign policy front. The cry of death to Russia and death to China was chanted by the fanatical supporters today of Ayatollah Rafsanjani, Mr. Corruption, Mr. Bazaar, death to Russia, death to China, coming from the Rafsanjani Mousavi clique at Friday prayers, followed then by a riot in which the anti-Russian, anti-Chinese mob clashed with the security forces, the Basiji, and the Pastaran Revolutionary Guards. So this faction fight is now out in the open, and the hand of Zbigniew Brzezinski, the hand of Soros, the hand of the soft power clique, the hand of the color revolutions, CIA people power coups, velvet revolutions, destabilizations, subversion, and all the rest could not be more evident. The supporters of Ahmadinejad at this meeting were chanting death to America. The supporters of Rafsanjani and Mousavi chanting hysterically, fanatically, death to Russia, death to China. And there it is. That's what I've been telling you for the past 18 months. The Brzezinski-Soros soft power clique is determined to use Iran as a tool, as a kamikaze puppet, a totally expendable international asset and proxy against the dominant Eurasian powers, Russia and China. Iran becomes the spear point, the continental dagger for the Anglo-Americans in the struggle against the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. That's if they can take power, big if. Now they're out in the open. They have exposed themselves. Obviously, the cover story for why they're chanting death to Russia, death to China is on the one hand regarding Russia. You remember that at the height of the attempt to steal that election, the hysterical campaign by the Anglo-American mass media that there had been some kind of vote fraud, that who wouldn't vote for Mousavi? Well, Mousavi was, of course, the people's choice with his demand for privatization and internet freedom and all the rest of this. Who wouldn't go for that? More globalization he wanted. At the height of that, you'll remember that Ahmadinejad went to a meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization and was photographed very cordially shaking hands with Russian President Medvedev. So that's the immediate Russian side, is that the mob, the rioters, the ruckus society of North Tehran, the rich elitists and desperate housewives wearing their masks, right? The masses out there in the street, the ochlocracy of North Tehran, the color revolution based on the rich, they were all very much against Russia because of the support they perceive for Ahmadinejad now. And at the same time, you've then also got China. And as we pointed out last week, one of the reasons why the CIA and MI6 wanted to have that big massacre of hundreds of Chinese in Urumqi out there in Xinjiang province in Chinese Turkestan is because based on that, you've now got a diplomatic crisis going between China on the one hand and Iran, Turkey, and other countries on the other. So the Chinese having, and indeed Pakistan, tensions there too. So tensions between China and the Islamic world follow on this cynical CIA provocation, with, of course, the key role being played by Rabia Kadeer, Kadeer, the World Uyghur Congress, based here in wealthy Fairfax, Virginia. And, of course, she's on the payroll of the National Endowment for Democracy, who give officially above ground $550,000 of your tax dollars go to pay for Uyghur terrorists. And now we see why. Because based on that provocation, and this is how you can manipulate the mob, right? The mob is suggestible. And the Mousavi Rafsanjani mob is now out there chanting, death to Russia, death to China. Well, QED, I rest my case. This is what they wanted. And if that crew ever took power, I've been telling you for the last couple of weeks, if Mousavi and Rafsanjani ever got back to power, one of the first things they would do is find a reason to cut off the oil deliveries to China, because that's the name of the Anglo-American game. The U.S.-British imperialist position is now so weak that even peaceful trade, what normally people would say is always good, right? Let's not have war. Let's have peaceful economic cooperation, trade, mutually beneficial. No, 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 say the Anglo-Americans. We don't want that. We've got to strangle the Chinese in their need for overseas oil, overseas raw materials. Therefore, they have to target Pakistan, the energy corridor, target Sudan as a source of oil, target Zimbabwe, where a lot of the minerals come from, target basically the Chinese presence in Africa. And that was the underlying theme of Obama's speech there in Ghana about 10 days ago. So that's very big. Death to Russia, death to China, say the Rafsanjani Mousavi people. Death to America, say the Ahmadinejad people. Now, it is clear that what is shaping up in Iran is a clash between Ahmadinejad and his supporters on the one side and the more or less, the overwhelming majority of the clerical establishment. So Ahmadinejad against the mullahs, Ahmadinejad against the ayatollahs, Ahmadinejad against the clerical establishment, and this gets you into the geometry of Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the Great, on my short list of the greatest statesmen of the 20th century, up there with de Gaulle and Roosevelt and Sun Yat-sen and so forth. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, one of the greats. The only country that was defeated in World War I that didn't go fascist was Turkey under Ataturk. So Ataturk is a very current figure in many parts of the world. Remember, Musharraf in Pakistan tried to present himself as the new Ataturk. He didn't make it. Ahmadinejad obviously doesn't have the sophistication, the intelligence that you would need to be a full Ataturk, at least at this point. But it looks to me like events are forcing us now into this geometry. Ahmadinejad, in order to survive, is going to have to dump these corrupt, parasitical, and bigoted mullahs, who, of course, are the ones who interfere in everybody's life. They shake you down for money, and then they harass the women because of what they wear. And this is a lot of the friction between the Iranian masses and the regime. Just think, if you could dump those mullahs, get rid of them, send them all back to the holy city of Qom, then you would have a situation where a lot of the friction, a lot of the discontent could be at least mitigated, neutralized, palliated in the short term. So Ahmadinejad evolving towards a more or less classic military, bureaucratic, authoritarian dictatorship, that looks like the way it's going. And, Rafsanjani just provoked a riot with his lunatic supporters chanting "Death to Russia, death to China." That's a tall order. Death to Russia, death to China. The death to America, of course, by now is it's an old cliche. This doesn't exactly pull anybody out of their chair over there. But death to Russia, death to China. That's something new. And of course, the British. I guess the British feel bad because they had been promoted to the great Satan above the U.S. by Khamenei in the past couple of weeks, right? The British role, the BBC subversion, the BBC Persian language radio and Persian language TV had attracted all of that resentment. So, death to Russia, death to China. Brzezinski's gaining traction, but at the same time, he's exposed. And this analysis that you heard here is confirmed.